what is the proper relationship between structure and the referenced semantics that are associated with those structures? So let's dive straight into the deep end with that one.
Sure. I'll
Yeah.
give that a stab if I may, because I think too I was about to noodle on, what content engineering isn't, and that is looking to the past, right? Content Web 2.0, and what content engineering isn't, and one of the reasons that it's evolved as a practice and it's required is that in the good old days, you would have your content and you would have a CMS, and you would slam your content into a CMS. It would probably publish to a website, maybe somewhere else, and you were done. Right? Content engineering necessarily is a necessary discipline because there is further requirements on content, or certainly in the intelligent content world, that pertain both to reuse and reconfigurability, adaptability, all of Anne's checklist of intelligent, as well as things like personalization and recommendation. So to that first level, when we were discussing structure, in order to facilitate the reuse, reconfigurability and adaptability of content for different endpoints and in different environments, that's the reason for pulling apart the presentation and data layers. As it pertains to things like personalization and recommendation and intelligent surfacing of content in different contexts, that's where the semantic layer comes in. And you can't hope to, for example, recommend, say, an article to someone unless you know what it is about. And the more granular level at which you do that, the more utility you'll get from that content, whether that's at a content object level like an article, or for taking a more data or structured content view, even portions within content that can be retrieved and reused in different environments and reconfigured to make new products. So the semantics, the meaning of content objects or components of content objects is both extremely powerful and also very necessary in terms of the web/internet 3.0 world of personalization, recommendation, and in general the intelligent surfacing of content, because you know something about its meaning and machines are able to process that.
So that relationship with meaning is essential to intelligent machine processing. So entity identification and intent and response matching, all of that is hinging on these semantic identifiers. Ulrike mentioned metadata. What do you think, Ulrike, is the relationship between metadata and semantics? Are they the same thing? I mean, I've actually seen a lot of people say, metadata, semantics, same thing.
Yeah, it's actually used as synonyms. I just want to hook up onto what Aaron said. If you think of the Web 3.0, you have to take one step further, which is 4.0, which is the connected industry, smart factories. And you need the semantics to connect information, not only across your company, but between different companies. So I just wanted to add that. So we are actually in the fourth phase already. And metadata is not necessarily an ontology. It depends on how you organize it. I think that regarding vocabularies and ontologies, metadata should be organized like that, and then published open source so that everybody can use them and use them to enrich their content in order to make content linkable. So we are no longer talking about aggregating content or assembling, but actually talking about linked documentation, and that would be the next logical step for us. And we need metadata, semantics, and ontologies for that, however you call that.
Okay, and love to hear your thoughts on those relationships between structure and semantics.
Well, first, when we go back to what is semantic, semantic essentially means meaning. And we can have semantic structure. So it's not format based, it uniquely identifies what that content is. So we can have semantic structure, and then we can layer on top of that metadata, which is semantic and provides more meaning. to the information. I don't think they're separate, they're just different aspects of semantic when we look at our content. And if we can have structure with semantic meaning in our content, which makes it easier for obviously the technology to retrieve and to present, it also, as I always say, it makes it easier for the authors to create because they know what they're creating, and therefore they're creating it succinctly, and then they add that additional information, which is semantic metadata, to better explain it, to give it a broader understanding, because you can't describe content with just one descriptor. We need much more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just like the brain, we've got so many associations with every node, and the brain wouldn't function if it was just single association, right? It's all the associations wired together.
Many.
Yeah.
I always use my hands.
So Carolyn, you're doing a lot of application of structure and management of structure. Do you have counterparts at Cengage that deal with the ontology, taxonomies, semantic side? I would imagine that's pretty heavy.
Yeah, so my team has to be really aware of where we apply semantics to our content, but for something like where we want to apply a standard ontology or standard vocabulary to a particular project, it's my team needs to understand where we would do that and the reasons why. And then we have the luxury of tapping into an entire team of vocabulary experts, and we also have a team of indexers that we work with, and we also have a group that does machine-aided indexing. So in terms of our relationship with those teams, basically we focus on the structure. I really liked Anne's description of structure being semantic as well as metadata, because I agree a lot of people think about metadata as being where metadata is being semantic, but there's a spectrum in terms of how we deliver meaning from our content, and part of it is from the structure. But my team, when they're working with our vocabulary team, we have to have an understanding of whether there's an existing vocabulary or taxonomy that exists in the universe that we should be leveraging, so that it can be crosswalked across not just our content, but that content that's created by others. If one doesn't exist, we have the luxury of having a team that can actually develop a taxonomy, and that's something that is extremely valuable asset to have, and really helpful because we don't have to tackle that all in one area of expertise. Yeah. So yeah, but I would say the point about the markup being, the structure being semantic, we leverage that quite a bit when we're implementing content, when we're talking about delivering content to third parties that might make use of our content, or describing our content to the people that manage our internal platforms. So that's a big component of it as well.
Yeah, interesting.
I would like to add something about the semantic structures and the metadata. When we developed this vocabulary, we were being asked, why do you repeat the semantic structures that you have in XML in your ontology? Because we do, because the point is, like a separation of layout and content, you want to separate metadata and the content. So what you do is that you derive the metadata automatically from the semantic structures. There's nothing to do with that. The author needs to repeat that and tag all the content again, which is already semantically structured with metadata. But in the transformation to the output format, you separate you transform the semantic structures into metadata and then deliver it, because this is like the precondition for a robot, a machine, to read and evaluate the metadata without having to be able to render the content and understand your specialized DTD, for example, or schema. I think that's a very important point, that you know that you can come from semantic structures to metadata.
Yeah, I think, and you mentioned that transformation process, and I think that it's machine aided, it's machine delivered. The machine has to have handles on the content to be able to perform that transformation.
Yeah.
Therefore, it needs to have the definition of of the structure and the semantic relationships available to it. So even though we don't necessarily need all of these either structures or semantic enrichments for human consumption, we do need it for machine process. So this is kind of getting to this idea that in many cases, the content engineers are really mediating the relationship with machines and the content and the meaning of the content. We're having to work with that connection point between the content and the systems that consume it. One of the ways I like to describe one way that structure and semantics works together is through that same lens of looking at a CMS configuration. And you've got a field that might be, let's say, audience, and that audience that article might be appropriate to may have a pick list. So there's an audience field, right? So that's essentially a structural element, but then the pick list of values of which audience types that article goes to, that's a semantic association. So ideally, that's coming from some kind of centralized or managed source, like Carolyn's counterparts that are managing terminology. So that way, it's shared. And I think it was Carolyn was talking about, does this exist elsewhere, right? If I'm going to create a new semantic association in my CMS architecture, am I creating this out of whole cloth, or does this exist elsewhere? Where can I get that source so that it's shared with others? And that's the other thing I think all of us have to deal with is collaboration with the others that need to deal with that content set, because we can't engineer in a vacuum. We're engineering for presentation, we're engineering for delivery, we're engineering for all of these things that we have to bring together.
To listen in on the full roundtable conversation and others, plus get access to more exclusive insight about omnichannel customer experiences, join the content order for free at simpleA.com.